Hello and welcome to my full show review of NXT TakeOver Portland, which opened with a Poppy concert. That's not a concert that's kind of like pop music. That's an artist called Pop who does a lot of music for NXT at the moment. Did I say Poppy? I meant Poppy. Anywho, who opened with the concert with a couple of her songs, and I'm not sure if that was live or not. It seemed too good, if you know what I mean. It seemed too polished to be live, but it may have been. Who knows? Maybe that's just a big compliment to her live performance and her band's live performance. Anywho, moving on. I didn't tune in to see a concert. I tuned in to see some wrestling. And I just want to start off the review of the show by giving a shout out to the guy who took the Rick and Morty "Show Me What You Got" sign, which was pretty good. That he kept holding up during matches. He was on a hard cam side, only a couple of rows back, and that gave me a little chuckle. Right, we started off the show with the North American Championship match between Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic, who came out in a Kobe Bryant hoodie, which is a nice little shout out, I suppose. I think he played basketball in college. I think they mentioned he was a 3-sport athlete. I think one of those was presumably basketball. I would imagine basketball, football, and baseball are the three main, or it could be track. 3 of those 4. Anyway, but with his height, I imagine he played basketball, so he probably looked up to Kobe Bryant. And whatever your personal opinions on what he was accused of were, you know, it was a bit of a shock when obviously he died in that helicopter crash. So Dijakovic giving a shout out to Kobe Bryant with his hoodie for his entrance. The match itself was a bit. I put it was a slightly janky start. With it felt a bit disjointed. There was a couple of things that didn't quite seem to flow. And I think overall it kind of added to the feel of the match being an actual contest rather than being way too choreographed. I think they aimed for way too choreographed, missed, and actually ended up better for the miss, surprisingly. Yeah, I think that's what happened. But I did put that Hurricane Rana. Yeah, Keith Lee hit a really clean looking Hurricane Rana, to be honest. I will say though that a big theme of this match was sometimes I felt these two guys were trying too hard to prove how nimble they are for big guys. Like there was far too many cruiserweight style high spots. There should just be 1 or 2 that really sort of stand out in the match, but it felt like they were trying to have a cruiserweight match, which, as much as they might say, oh, they move like the half the weight, they're not, and they don't move like the half the weight. They move like big men who are very agile for the weight. They don't move like cruiserweights. Cruiserweights can do all sorts of crazy stuff that these guys just physically could not do. That said, the Hurricane Rana was very impressive. I did notice that Keith Lee seemed off balance a few times as well. I don't know if maybe he came into the match a little bit under the weather and maybe his balance was affected, like if his ears were a little bit, affected by being ill. You can get like a head cold and it can affect your balance a little bit. I don't know. He just seemed a little off a few times, like bouncing off the ropes, and he seemed to almost stumble and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's me reading too much into something, but it was a few times early on in the match I noticed that Keith Lee seemed a little bit off step today, or yesterday, or the day before, depending on when this actually ends up going up. There was an impressive moment where Dijakovic did a Fosbury flap, which is, in case you're not sure, it's where you jump over backwards. It's the standard technique used in a high jump. That was invented by someone called Fosbury, funnily enough, over the top rope, but Keith Lee caught him, and I say caught him, there's a bit of an asterisk. Dijakovic placed himself really well and kind of caught himself on the apron as well, so Keith Lee still probably took half, 2/3 of his weight, which is still pretty impressive to catch, but it wasn't a clean in mid-air catch that would have been just ridiculous and probably impossible, which is why they did it the way they did. Still super impressive. There was a lot of high spots, a lot of big moments in the match. I'm not going to do a blow-by-blow account because I would have ended up just writing constantly and not enjoying the match. So that's not what these reviews are for. They're just to give my thoughts and my opinions on how the show was and start a conversation in the comments as well. So if let me know what you thought of each match, of the show as a whole, anything I say that you agree with, disagree with. Let's get the conversation going in the comment section. Dijakovic did hit a corkscrew moonsault, which I deemed worthy of writing down. That was pretty impressive. there was a lot, as I just mentioned, there was a lot of big moves, and there was a lot of these two guys standing face to face and hitting each other and not no-selling it. I wrote no-selling because I knew what I'd mean. They weren't no-selling it in the sense that they just were acting like it didn't hurt at all, but there was a lot of this, bravado of, oh, you've just hit me, right, I'm going to come back and get in your face and growl at you or scream at you or whatever. There was a lot of that where it is a type of selling. I'm not saying that they didn't sell anything. It's just, it's sort of like the bravado selling or whatever you want to call it, where, they're both refusing to go down to each other's moves, like they're closelining each other and both standing there, and then at one point they went down to a knee, both with the head on each other's shoulder because they were nearly out, but they were both determined to stay on at least one knee. There was a lot of that in the match. There was an Avalanche Death Valley driver at one moment, which I'm pretty sure Mauro Ranallo called a Feast Your Eyes, but isn't a Feast Your Eyes where they're the other way up on the shoulders and he flips them over onto a knee? That's totally different from a Death Valley driver, which is basically just an attitude adjustment, but you actually drop down with it. And obviously, I know the Death Valley driver came first, so the attitude adjustment is just a standing Death Valley driver, but you know what I mean. And I also noticed during this match, and I didn't keep track throughout the whole show, and I was going to, but I just forgot because I was enjoying the show. But Mauro Ranallo used Mamma Mia 3 times in this match. 2 of them were for one move. He just did it twice. And the reason this caught my eye is because I'd just seen something online about, is he overusing Mamma Mia now? Yes. The fact that he used it 3 times in a match, yes, he's over. It should be like, it shouldn't even be being used 3 times in a takeover, in my opinion. It's like, that's like the super big moment thing. He should use that for moments like Ciampa air raid crashing Cole off the War Games cage. That is a Mamma Mia moment. That is huge. This it was big, but I don't think every big moment needs a Mamma Mia. Anyway, yeah, and I think he called the wrong move as well. But who am I to correct professional? Who knows? But let me know in the comments. Am I right, or is this one of those moves where there's kind of 2 variations and they call it the same thing? Because that does happen from time to time, and it's just unnecessarily confusing, to be honest. Anyway, there was a moment where Keith Lee was outside the ring, kind of in between the announce tables on one of the announcers' desk chair type chairs. So not a steel chair, not a folding chair, like an actual computer desk chair. And he was sat in that, all bug-eyed and wobbly-head and what have you. And then I'm trying to picture this spot now. Dijakovic did, I've written down a springboard flip senton. I think what he did was he was on the apron, jumped up onto the middle rope, and then turned and did like a somersault and landed kind of upside down in Keith Lee's lap, which was pretty impressive. Again, that was the move that got 2 Mamma Mias, which I feel was maybe slightly unnecessary. Really big spot, definitely deserved selling on commentary, like, don't get me wrong, but too much of a good thing, and I'm not even sure the Mamma Mia is a good thing, but whatever. Everyone else seems into it, so maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but whatever. Keith Lee failed a backflip out of a chokeslam immediately after Dijakovic succeeded in backflipping out of a chokeslam, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, how many of the spots I've named have been like them doing flips and jumping over the top rope and springboarding, and these guys are huge. They should have an impressive house battle with one super athletic move each in the match to really stand out as a huge moment in the match where everyone's like, whoa! But instead there was like 5 or 6 of these sort of cruiserweight style spots. Keith Lee ballsed up his backflip out of it as well. He basically almost landed on his face and then had to sort of get up trying to look fierce, and it just looked a bit silly in the end. And that's the risk with trying to do too much of this. Look how agile we are. We get it. You're agile for big men. Still be big men though. Like it started to bug me by the end of the match, and that's not me trying to say this was a bad match, but this was, in my opinion, off memory, their worst of the matches they've had, because they've had a few on NXT TV over. I think that was back in 2019. Now I don't think that was this year. Yeah, it was, because it was before War Games, because then they built each other's mutual respect after the rivalry and ended up as a team in War Games. So yeah, so they had a few matches, and I enjoyed them more because again the ridiculous spots were a little bit more few and far between, if I remember rightly. Anyway, the finish came when Keith Lee hit what I've never heard it called this before, but Ranallo called it the Big Bang Catastrophe. Let me know if that's just me not being oblivious, because I do watch NXT every week, and I just don't recall that being the name. But it's basically his Death Valley driver into a jackhammer kind of finish, into a power slam that Keith Lee does. He got the 3. I predicted these matches, by the way. I didn't do a prediction video, but I predicted them on Twitter the night before, because I knew I wasn't going to be watching live, and I wouldn't have time to do a predictions video. So I'm 1 for 1. After this match, I predicted Keith Lee to win and retain. I think most people probably did. He's only just won the title, and he's one of their biggest stars by some distance at the moment, Keith Lee. So I foresee him holding on to this title for a little while, actually, unless the plan is to transition him to the NXT title. That'll be the point where he loses it, in my opinion, is when he's ready to step up. When they're ready to take the NXT title off Adam Cole, it may very well be Keith Lee that does it. Or when he's ready to come up to main roster, when Vince goes, no, I want him. And Triple H can't hold on to him any longer. I don't know, one or the other. Anyway, they had a hug afterwards. You know, they've built up this respect from their rivalry, like I say, in 2019. So they had the little hug afterwards, and Keith Lee helped Dijakovic up onto the middle rope to celebrate, and then lifted his title and pointed at himself, and the camera zoomed in on Keith Lee. So yeah, it was a nice gesture and all, but didn't really help Dijakovic, did it? Anyway, enough about that one singular match. There were 6 matches on this card, which I believe is more than usual. I seem to have it in my head that takeovers are usually 5 matches. The 4 title matches and a personal match. This one had 2 personal matches and the usual 4 titles. So let's get into the first personal match, which was a street fight between Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai that's been building since War Games. Again, the second mention for that show. It was a pretty pivotal show by all accounts. A lot of things coming out of War Games and into this show. So Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai turned heel by attacking Tegan Nox in their little team cage before they entered the War Games match and injuring her, and then she's obviously come back and yada yada yada. Kai attacked Nox during the entrances. I wonder what odds we'd have got on that at Bookies. Probably none. They wouldn't have taken that bet. It was too obvious. But it was a pretty good wild brawl. There was a fun little spot with a cricket bat, obviously a gimmicked cricket bat, but she swung it at, I think it was Kai, because obviously she's a New Zealander, and everyone in New Zealand likes cricket. Everyone knows that. She swung the cricket bat at Nox's head. Nox ducked, and the cricket bat basically exploded on the ring post outside the ring. So, it was obviously gimmicked by how it fell apart. But still, a fun little spot to see a slightly different weapon to the standard ones. Even if it was basically racist. Hey, you're from New Zealand. Here, use a cricket bat. Anyway, there was a lot of weapons and what have you teased and also used in this match. There was a nice German suplex spot where Tegan Nox German suplex Dakota Kai onto a trash can, and her head hit the trash can. I know the aluminium and the cave in, but still, that's going to be a bit of a jarring impact to smack your head off metal. There was a really good violent looking spot where Tegan Nox set up the folding chair, so instead of having it flat, she had it set so you could sit in it, and she sort of placed Dakota Kai's head through the gap in the back of the chair. So she was face down on the seat, chest down on the seat, if you like, and her face was sticking through the back of the chair. And then tried to just punt kick her, which was, I think they were getting at the Shiningest Wizard thing, but it was basically just a Randy Orton punt kick, but Kai moved. There was a laptop used to Dakota Kai's knee. Tegan Nox really went for this. She was really the aggressor for a lot of this match with some of the really violent stuff, which is fair enough. She's the one with the super personal issue, I suppose. So she hit her in the knee with a laptop. She wrapped a chain around her fist and delivered some very weak looking punches to the knee, which didn't look that great. I think she hit her in the knee with a chair at one point. Oh no, she did the chair stomp spot. She folded the chair around Kai's knee and then stomped on it. Yeah, that spot. That sometimes is like an career-ending injury kind of thing, and sometimes is just a spot in the middle of a match. She then hit the Shiningest Wizard, but didn't go for the pin. And it was at that moment that I knew I was right with my prediction that Dakota Kai was going to win this match, because you don't simply hit your finisher. One does not simply hit your finisher and not go for a pin and then win the match. It just does not happen. That is a sign. And I was like, okay, I'm 2 for 2 here. Sure enough, she brought the table in the ring. She set Dakota Kai up on the table. She put the chair on Dakota Kai's neck, like she had with the knee before, but this time over her neck. She climbed up on the top rope, and then I wrote, some woman attacked. And I didn't recognise her. The crowd didn't recognise her. The crowd were dead for that spot. Like, they just, no reaction, just, oh, who are you? Kind of thing. Beth Phoenix called out. She's Raquel Gonzalez, whoever that is. Maybe some other people, some in the comment section, are a bit more familiar with Raquel Gonzalez than I am. No idea. No idea. And neither did the people in attendance by the sounds of the reaction. This wasn't Mercedes Martinez turning up and everyone being like, whoa! This was, who are you? Like, you know, it was just complete miss, in my opinion. Speaking of a complete miss, she picked Tegan Nox up and, in a quite impressive display of strength, threw her across the ring at the table. The only problem is she didn't throw her quite far enough, so Nox basically hit the table right on the edge and slid down it and just tipped the table over. And Dakota Kai still got the pin on her, but yeah, the table was actually just in one piece, just on its side at the end. Even Dakota Kai seemed confused by the interference. I did make note of. She was selling it like she wasn't expecting Gonzalez. So, be interesting to see how that story plays out. But it seems Dakota Kai didn't ask for that help. It just arrived anyway. So, it'd be interesting to find out how that turns out on NXT TV. I noticed, actually, it was only 2 matches that featured interference. But that's a lot for an NXT TakeOver. Usually, most NXT TakeOver matches are clean finishes, like most. I would say an average of 4 out of the usual 5, 4.5 out of the 5, as in one show there might be 4, the next show there's 5 clean finishes, the next show 4, the next show 5. It's really close to all matches always being clean finishes on TakeOvers, and there was 2 out of 6 were featured interference on today's show, which I don't have a problem with. I just noticed it's a different way to how NXT normally do things. The curse of becoming a third main roster brand, eh? Suddenly you get booked like main roster. But it was a good show. I'm not criticising. I'm just joking with that line. But it was interesting to see like how different this takeover felt to the one before Survivor Series, where everything was. Well, I say everything was clean. There was the Women's War Game shenanigans, but the finish itself was clean. There was no interference. Anyway, ramble. Next, there was an announcement for the next NXT UK takeover, which is going to be in Dublin, which I found really funny that it was like the first NXT UK takeover not to be in the UK, and it's like, I mean, it's NXT UK. Why would they have takeovers not in the UK? It just really, I was just like Dublin's close enough. Look, I'm in the UK. I understand geography. Ireland is not part of the UK, but it is land attached to one of the countries of the UK in Northern Ireland. It's not like it's not like they've gone to Russia or something, and it's like, whoa, what are we doing in Russia? This is NXT UK. It's like it's close enough. Like, Jordan Devlin's Irish, he's in NXT UK, you know, it just tickled me how they worded it. The first NXT UK takeover not to be in the UK. I was like, okay. That's April 26th. Looking forward to that. Obviously not going to go to this one live. That's just a little bit out of my travel range, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, it should be a good show. I'll probably watch it live and report back to you. Anyway, the next match was Finn Balor versus Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano, Johnny NXT, Johnny TakeOver, Johnny Wrestling. I wrote down on this, ironically, I didn't take notes. My notes said I didn't take notes, but it's true. I wrote this quite late in the match because there weren't a lot of big moments in this match up until we were approaching the end of the match, the final sort of third of the match. It was just really solid wrestling. It was a really good wrestling match. Instead of like a bit of a spot fest like a lot of matches tend to be. These two, who are both capable of those spot fest kind of matches, especially like Gargano last year with Adam Cole, their series of matches were just PWG written all over them. These were real WWE style psychological wrestling matches, and I really no, it wasn't plural, it was one match, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Like I say, it built up towards the end. There was a fair amount of high spots towards the end, but it was a slow building match. It started with some ground wrestling and some back and forth and chain wrestling and you know, one-upsmanship and what have you, a couple of stalemates, and it built to this crescendo, and I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was really well constructed. The finish came, first of all, Finn Balor shotgun dropkicked Gargano off the announce table into the barricade, which they referred to several times when it got done as a John Woo dropkick. I've never heard that before. Who's John Woo? Can someone let me know in the comments? Who's John Woo, and why is the dropkick named after him all of a sudden, when I'm sure I've always heard it called a shotgun dropkick, the one where they like fire them into the corner. But I think New Japan have started calling it a shotgun dropkick. I think I've heard that on New Japan commentary, so I wonder if that's why they stopped doing it in WWE, because, you know, Vince is petty like that. They call it this, we're not calling it that anymore, you know, kind of thing. But then again, they call Balor the Prince, so who knows? Anyway, so they did that dropkick spot. Balor threw Gargano back into the ring, hit a coup de grace, hit a 1916, and picked up the 3. Picked up the win. Nice and clean. Lovely. Good match. Really good match. By the way, I picked Dakota Kai to win in the previous match, and I picked Finn Balor to win in this match, so 3 from 3. Booyah! I thought, I'm feeling a bit confident here. I might be on for 6 from 6. Although, I'll be honest, the main event, I picked with my heart, and I knew I was probably going to be wrong. But I had to pick. The way I did for the main event. But it was... What was I going to say? I was feeling pretty confident that I might get 5 out of 6. And, you know, had my fingers crossed that I'd get 6 out of 6. I'd have been surprised, though, with 6 out of 6. Anyway, next was an Undisputed Era promo that was mostly Roderick Strong, being pretty intense, talking about the recent history with him and Velveteen Dream, and Dream wearing his wife and child airbrushed onto his tights, Rick Rude style. Like I said, it was an intense promo, and then all Adam Cole really added was, right, you can go now. Strong kind of bigged up Fish and O'Reilly is ready to retain the titles, and Adam Cole is the best NXT champion ever. You know, he did the promo, though, which I thought was interesting, because he's, in my opinion, the second weakest promo guy, I'd say, in Undisputed Era. Adam Cole is by far and away the best talker, but then I'd put Kyle O'Reilly above Roderick Strong in terms of, maybe not promo, but just general charisma and character performance. Roderick Strong's the wrestler of Undisputed Era, in my opinion, so it's interesting that they put him on the mic to represent them. Next match was the NXT Women's Championship match. Rhea Ripley, why'd I say Rhea? Against Bianca Belair. Again, I tried not to write down every spot in every match, but the first one I noticed was Bianca went for like a delayed vertical suplex, and then Rhea Ripley kind of wriggled out of it sideways and sort of landed on her feet, and then they went straight back to it, and then again they went sideways out of the suplex, but this time Rhea Ripley landed as if she'd been suplex. It was a weird spot. I don't know fully what they were going for, but it failed twice in 2 different ways, and then they moved on. She did walk around with Rhea Ripley in a gorilla press that she picked her up out. That Ripley was on like the second rope, and Bianca grabbed her and picked her up above her head and walked into the middle of the ring with her. Impressive display of strength. No one's doubting Belair's strength. It's very impressive, actually. There was another spot where Rhea Ripley got like flipped over the top rope by Bianca Belair, but the way the flip happened and the way Ripley landed, most importantly, looked so clumsy. It looked like Ripley was meant to land on her feet outside the ring, but she kind of landed on her heels, and they slipped out from under straight away, and she landed on her bum, basically, and it was just sat there like, oh, what happened? It really looked like she was supposed to land on her feet, but then Bianca Belair ran out and did a flip over the top rope onto Rhea Ripley that barely reached. So all of that bit was a little bit... Again, that's not your thing, girls. Like, just like the Keith Lee Dijakovic thing. It's not your thing. Stick to your thing. I'm trying to think of a good example I know he's not in NXT. Let Ricochet do the ridiculous flippy stuff. Like, you know, because it's not your thing. It's not what you do, and there's no need for you to do what you don't do. Same as we don't need Ricochet trying to bench press Brock Lesnar. We need him flipping around him when that match comes up at Super Showdown. We don't need you trying to do front flips over the top rope if you're just not comfortable doing them. If that's not your thing, I don't understand why people that are really good at what they do try to break it. And quite often mess it up. Now, that's not me saying don't evolve over time, but live on a takeover is not the time to try and bust out something that is not your forte. You work on that. You work on that in the performance center until it is your forte, and then you break it out, which they obviously didn't do because it would have worked if they had done that. Like, I'm not against people growing and expanding their repertoires and becoming more rounded performers. Just don't do it live. Do it in privacy until you're happy, until you're confident. I don't know. It just seems to have been a bit of a running theme on this show. There's a lot of people. This is another thing about the Balor Gargano match. They never stepped outside their comfort zone. They did what they do. They just did it really well, and that was what I appreciated about that match. Anyway, the finish was a little bit lame, by the way, to this match as well. I just wasn't that taken with this match, and I'm a big fan of Ripley, and I really like Belair as well. I like both these girls. I think they're both really good at what they do. I just don't feel like this match was a lot of what they do. It was trying to be something that they're not. But the finish was just like a normal Riptide, but where she had to pick Belair up off the turnbuckle for some reason, because apparently she can't just deliver a normal Riptide for the win. I don't know. It just came a bit out of nowhere, a bit sudden, and was a bit lame. I think I've already used the word. I can't think of a better word. It was a bit of a lame finish. She scored the 3. I'm 4 from 4. Predicted Ripley to retain. Again, considering the build she's not had the title long enough to be thinking about losing it just yet. I honestly don't think she'll lose it at WrestleMania either, because Charlotte came out and did a post-match attack, cut a brief promo, accepting Ripley's challenge for WrestleMania, and then attacked Belair as well. And then the thing I wrote down in quotes were just boo, because there was people like cheering, and I think they were chanting "We're not worthy," and Charlotte's just walking up the ramp with a big cheesy grin on her face, and then this one guy at the side of the ramp just goes boo. And it cracked me up. Anyway, what was I saying is, I don't think Ripley's losing to Charlotte at WrestleMania. I think this is a moment to make Ripley. I think Vince is obviously going to love Ripley. Like, look at her. You know, she looks like a megastar. She looks amazing. She looks formidable. She looks scary if she wants to. She's pretty hot if she wants to be. Like, you know, if she's dressed to look hot, if she's dressed to look scary, she's scary. She can do all of this stuff, and she's nowhere near a terrible wrestler. This wasn't a good match, but she is by no means a terrible wrestler. And she's believable beating Charlotte, because she's like the same size as Charlotte, maybe a touch bigger, I don't know. She's just... And the final thing, I'm just not convinced I see Charlotte being in NXT after WrestleMania with the NXT Women's title. I'm not sure I see that being a thing. So, on all those counts, unless something about the booking running up to WrestleMania changes my mind dramatically, I think Ripley's beating Charlotte at WrestleMania. Let me know what you think in the comments. The 5th match was the tag team match. Now, quite often they'll open up TakeOver with the tag titles match, but this time they put it semi-main, which was interesting. But I think it was to keep the Undisputed Era matches back to back to have... I think they were telling a story throughout the 2 matches, you know, with... forgive me for skipping ahead to the finish, but with Fish and O'Reilly losing their titles, and now all the pressure's on Adam Cole to keep some gold in Undisputed Era. I think they wanted to do that back to back. I feel like that's why the card was in that order, personally. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly against the Broserweights, Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne. Bobby Fish rocking the grey beard with just the mustache and the goatee like dyed black. He looked alright. I didn't mind that. I didn't mind it. It was an interesting new take on his look, and I'm not against it. I'm not mad at it. It looked pretty cool. I've never seen someone change their attire up by changing the colour of the beard to grey before. You know, normally change the colour of your trunks or something, but no, he was rocking the grey side. But basically, the bit of his beard that's shaved down, that's not, because he keeps his moustache and his goatee quite long, and then the rest is more stubble. The stubble was grey. He hadn't bothered just fermenting it, so I dig it. When the Broserweights came out, they're both wearing, Pete Dunne's wearing Matt Riddle's Bobby Fish shirt, the how much fish would Bobby Fish fry if Bobby Fish could fry fish, that shirt. Hey, I said it. Which was just amazing. I love Pete Dunne as the straight guy in this comedy duo. You know, like all great comedy duos have the clown and they have the straight guy that the clown bounces the humour off, and the straight guy's unimpressed reaction is part of the humour. Pete Dunne is just a master of this. And just because he's got the right face for it, the right miserable face for it, is brilliant. When Matt Riddle was singing the song and trying to get the crowd involved, which they weren't really buying, there was about like 20 people in the crowd that cared less about this song, which is a shame because it's a pretty fun moment. But the subtitles with the little fishbone logo bouncing across, that was fun. That was really fun. I noticed Matt Riddle can say, how much fish would Bobby Fish fry if Bobby Fish could fry fish? As many times as he wants. But he can't say broserweights, because what did he say? Brosers weights or something? He got too many S's in there or something. And I was like, come on, you can do the Bobby Fish thing, but you can't say broser weights. So I was like, anyway, eventually, O'Reilly and Fish had enough of Matt Riddle trying to get the crowd to sing his song and jump them to start the match. It was pretty wild at first. There was a lot of double teaming and tornado style action. Wow, this review's going long. Oh well, whatever. It was a fun moment where Matt Riddle was taken a bit out of commission, then Pete Dunne got outside the ring. He X-plexed Bobby Fish onto the apron, and then he X-plexed Kyle O'Reilly onto Bobby Fish, who was still on the apron, and that was a fun little moment. Kyle O'Reilly started doing the Dean Ambrose sort of duck back through the ropes and then come back, where he almost falls out the ring, but he catches himself and pulls himself back in. He started doing that. He arguably does it better than Dean Ambrose ever did, certainly with more enthusiasm. But he did it between the top and middle ropes, and then came back, and then got hit again, and did it between the middle and bottom rope, and then got hit again. It didn't work for him either time, but it was a really fun little spot. He didn't get hit the second time. He got dragged into an armbar, by Pete Dunne. But yeah, that was just a fun little spot. The second one made me pop because I was like, oh, I've never seen that. Like someone doing it twice in two different sets of ropes. It was pretty fun. It was a fun double submission spot. I'm trying to think what the submissions were. There was a bit of back and forth with O'Reilly and Dunne, different submissions getting exchanged. But it ended up with Kyle O'Reilly having Pete Dunne in a sharpshooter, or as the commentary team called it, a scorpion deathlock, which I thought was interesting. I would think in WWE you would go sharpshooter, because Sting's had like 3 matches or whatever it is in WWE, 2 matches. And Bret Hart and Owen Hart and countless other people have used The Rock's used a sharpshooter. Shawn Michaels has used a sharpshooter, but less said about that the better. But I thought it would be called the sharpshooter, but they called it the Scorpion Deathlock. I thought that was interesting. But anyway, he had Dunne in the sharpshooter, and then Bobby Fish had Matt Riddle in like a rear naked choke, like a sleeper, but where he was like grapevined around him, so he was off the floor like a backpack. And then Matt Riddle just walked over and just kicked Kyle O'Reilly in the face, and then dropped Bobby Fish backwards, which I thought was fun. Like PK to Kyle O'Reilly to break up the sharpshooter, and then broke up his own move. That was fun. O'Reilly had the heel hook on Matt Riddle later in the match, and Pete Dunne actually broke it up by stomping on Kyle O'Reilly's fingers, which was, again, another fun spot. I like these sort of spots where it's unique to that guy. Like Pete Dunne does the thing where he stands on your fingers, like he stomps on your fingers when your hands are on the floor. So it only makes sense for Pete Dunne to do that in this particular match. So it was a fun little... And how many submissions do you have where someone's got their hands on the floor? What, you've got the heel hook where he had a hand free. Figure 4, you'd have your hands on the floor maybe. There's not many though. Like it's quite a rare occasion where these two can work together. This move can be used to break up a submission. So it's fun when you use like quite a unique move like that. Then the breakdown happened, and I was like, oh, because I picked I picked Ripley to win the women's match. Did I mention that? I was 4 from 4. Either way, whatever. I picked O'Reilly and Fish to win here because I didn't necessarily think Riddle and Dunne were going to break up, but part of me kind of hoped they did, because that'd be a really fun TakeOver Tampa match. Riddle versus Dunne would have been fun. #bars. But also, it was just that whole thing of... I have this thing of a really well-established team like O'Reilly and Fish should usually be beating a thrown-together team that have had 4 or 5 matches. Like, I just... You're diminishing their credibility as a real tag team, like an established tag team, by having them lose to 2 guys who just kind of chucked themselves together because they had no other partners available for the Dusty Classic. It demeans it a little bit, in my opinion. But Anyway, so I was like, when Pete Dunne accidentally elbowed Matt Riddle off the apron, and then eventually Riddle came back in and went for the spear on whoever and missed. I think it was O'Reilly, and missed and hit Dunne. I was like, here we go. This is where it's all going to start falling apart and the build to Tampa. But then after that spear, Undisputed Era hit Chasing the Dragon and only got a 2. And I was like, oh, that would have been a good finish to the match, to be fair. Like, why are they finishing it with something else? Like, Matt Riddle hits the spear, they hit their signature move. It's not the finisher, but it's the signature, and it's arguably more impactful than the finisher anyway. But no, Dunne kicked out. And then they fought back. They hit the Bro to Sleep Enziguri combo to Bobby Fish, and got the 3. And I was like, oh, well, that's my perfect score out the door. And more #bars. And more importantly than that, I also wrote in my notes, probably means Cole wins. Sad face. Because I was like, oh, that means Ciampa's not getting the belt back. Like, I just thought, my mind was thinking, I don't think there's any way they have Undisputed Era lose both belts tonight. Like, I say both belts, the 3 belts, but both title matches that they're in tonight. It's a slow deterioration, this story of Undisputed Era. There was no way they were both losing, so I was hoping it was Adam Cole, because I don't really care if the Broserweights hold the tag titles. They were fun. They've been fun. They could have a fun feud with each other. I just want Ciampa back with the title. Like, Ciampa's just the best. So, yeah. Speaking of NXT Tampa, they then... Was this the first official announcement of it? I mean, obviously everyone knew they were going to do it, but in terms of like us seeing the logo and what have you, the logo is cool. I really like the NXT Tampa logo. It's cool. Like got the sort of Jolly Roger style skull in the middle, and yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Anyway, main event. As we're like well over half an hour into this review, and we've not even started the main event yet. Adam Cole, baby, against Tommaso Ciampa. Adam Cole is WWE's favourite. You can just tell. He's not mine. I don't mind him. I don't hate him. I think he is overrated by WWE quite significantly. I love Ciampa. Ciampa's claim of being the best sports entertainer in the world is a pretty strong one. He's maybe not the best wrestler in the world. He's not the worst either. He is a great sports entertainer. He is great at the character work. He is great at the facial expressions, getting his point across in promos, getting the right emotion into promos, eliciting the right reaction out of the audience. He is a master of all of that, even if he isn't the best catch-as-catch-can wrestler in the world. Is amazing at every other aspect and good enough at the wrestling aspect to be a strong contender for one of the best. The opening story was really good and went for quite a while into the match of Ciampa having everything scouted. He had an answer for everything. Everything Cole tried to do, it didn't work. He tried ramming Ciampa's head into the ring post. Ciampa just stopped himself with his hands. And I can't remember many other examples, but I just remember thinking, the whole story at the start is Ciampa's got his number. Like, the whole story at the start is Cole can't even... It's not that Cole can't beat Ciampa, it's that he can't even touch him. He can't do anything successfully to Ciampa that has any sort of major impact. There was a great moment outside the ring where Adam Cole was sat in like the timekeeper's area on like a folding chair, I believe. I assume he was sat on a folding chair. I don't know what else he'd have been sat on. And then Ciampa took him out with a really, really flying knee. It wasn't just a flying knee. It was a really... He like bounced over him like and landed on the other side of Cole. Like after Cole had fallen over, landed above his head kind of thing. He threw himself into it. But then he got up on the ring barricade and like was sat there like he was going to pat himself on the back, but some fans patted him on the back, and then he just grabbed this bald fan and just kissed him on the head. And the guy marked out big time, and so would I have if Ciampa had grabbed me and kissed me on the head during a match. But it was just such a funny moment. Like, it was like, okay, Ciampa works as a face as well. Like, because one of the things I've really liked about this Ciampa face one is he's not that different to heel Ciampa. He's the same guy. It just happens to be chasing heels. And there's little elements where I'm like, okay, that was a bit babyface-ish. And I just want him to be pure heel Ciampa. Just we're allowed to cheer him now. But that moment, I can't even be mad about. That was just really funny. There was a really brutal spot where Adam Cole like did a wheelbarrow German suplex to Ciampa, and he hit into the announce table, into like the edge of it. Now on the replay, it looked safer. They showed the replay, and I saw how it was safe. He hit it with his arms outstretched, and they took the brunt of it, and all the way across his back, it was one big solid thing hitting the edge of the announce table. It was nowhere near his neck being involved. But it looked brutal to see someone who's had the neck issues he's had take that move for the first time before you got to see a replay and really analyse how he hit that table. It looked brutal. It was a really good spot. I put ouch. Ciampa later powerbombed Adam Cole onto the announce table, and he bounced off it and landed on the commentator side, so he went round and powerbombed him again, so he went through it. I don't know if it was always the plan to do two, or if the table just didn't break and they went, we're putting you through this, like, we're doing this spot. But either way, that was pretty cool. A bit later, there was a last shot from Adam Cole, and Ciampa rolled across the ring and grabbed the bottom rope and like proper hooked around it. And I thought that was a really good spot. Like, yeah, his bell was rung by the last shot, but he had enough about him to know, I'm in trouble here. Although, I always question, if he had the energy to roll several times and then hook onto the bottom rope, surely he has the energy to slightly lift his right shoulder off the mat. Just slightly roll to the left a tiny bit. Surely they have the energy to do that. So it's an interesting spot. I like it, but when you analyse it logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. What else we got? Ciampa hit Cole with an air raid crash on the ring apron, which looked pretty gruesome. There was also a Panama Sunrise on the outside where Adam Cole jumped off the announce table, the one they hadn't broken, obviously, and hit the Panama Sunrise, which is basically a Canadian destroyer. And that looked pretty gnarly, especially with Ciampa's neck issues. It's the thing is, it adds an extra dimension when someone comes back from an injury like that, because every time they take a bump that could hurt the neck, you're genuinely concerned, so it gets you really invested. Maybe for the wrong reason. Maybe for the wrong reason that you're thinking, oh God, please just don't paralyse yourself, don't die. But you are definitely an extra level of invested in these matches after an injury like this. Not that I'm saying it's a good thing that people suffer these injuries, but in terms of match psychology afterwards, it kind of is. Like, it kind of works out as a positive as long as they come back from it, as long as it's not a career ender or, anything more serious than that, as long as you don't have a Droz situation. When they come back, it's like, like Daniel Bryan when he came back from his concussion issues. Every time anyone went near his head for the first few months, everyone was like, oh, or he landed pretty heavy, everyone was like, oh, has that rung his bell? And it got you so much, you were paying attention to the match, you were watching for the stuff, it was really good. And it's not within anyone's control, it's just something where you make a negative into a positive. You get that silver lining around that cloud. And it was pretty good. After that Panama Sunrise, he rolled Ciampa into the ring, and Ciampa basically instantly recovered and hit a Willow's Bell, I think they're calling it now. It's just a draping DDT, which I thought was a bit odd to have him basically no-sell a Panama Sunrise on the outside like that, but it's just more and more common in wrestling. Like, what can you do? Like, I don't like it, but what can you do? It just happens a lot. It happens a lot in Adam Cole matches. Just going to say, he loves his PWG style matches where you transition from one big spot to the next big spot to the next big spot to the next big spot, back and forth, no selling. He loves that. And he was the heel in this match. He was probably leading it, and he loves that. So, it was probably his fault. I won't blame Ciampa. I'll just blame Cole. And then hit a fairy tale ending, which got a 2. And then I put, Cole wins, sad face. So, again, like I said before, Tegan Knox, you don't simply hit your finisher and not pin someone. You also don't simply hit your finisher, shoot your biggest shot, and not pin them, and then go on to win the match. That's it. That was where it was confirmed for me Ciampa was losing. They exchanged crossfaces at one point. Cole put a crossface on Ciampa, which had his neck at a really awkward looking angle. It probably wasn't that uncomfortable, but it looked it. It was really... And then Ciampa clearly doesn't know how to apply a crossface, but he had a go, bless him. Ended up as almost like an STF, but with a rear chin lock. It ended up as some weird nonsense that was not a crossface, but I get what they were going for. They were exchanging crossfaces. Then Undisputed Era rocked up, which, as I said during the Knox Kai match, 2 matches in one takeover with interference is really high. Like, I don't recall that happening. It may have done. Maybe in the comments, stupid, it happened on this show. But just off the top of my head, it doesn't happen often, put it that way. I don't recall it happening before. So anyway, Roderick Strong distracted the ref. Ciampa ate the high-low combination, easy for me to say, from Fish and O'Reilly, which is their finisher I alluded to before, that's less impactful than Chasing the Dragon. Only got a 2 count. They rolled him back in. Ciampa kicks out. You kind of expect him to. Then there was a ref bump. Then Adam Cole low-blowed Ciampa, and then this moment was great because Ciampa's there, like, obviously, in a lot of pain, stood there. Cole gets up on the corner and goes for Panama Sunrise, and Ciampa just kicks in between the legs and gets the low blow back. And that's what I love about Ciampa. He's not a babyface. That's what I really enjoy about it. He's still just heel Ciampa. He has no qualms about doing stuff like that. He's just fighting worse guys. He's a bad guy fighting worse guys at the moment. That's all we can really say. So that's why he gets the face reaction. It was pretty fun. Then there was a fairy tale ending, and then no ref to count it. And I think the fans got up to about 13 before they got bored of counting. Ciampa had got off Cole and everything and walked away, and the fans were still counting. And again, that's the moment where I was like, wow, if it was ever certain that he's losing this match, now it's just beyond certain. It was just like, okay, you have had every possible way of them telling us in advance you're not winning this match, Ciampa. Sorry, buddy, but you're not winning it. Yeah, I put Cole defo winning, sad face. I've got 3 sad faces in the all because in my notes, and that's because Cole's going to beat Ciampa. Then Gargano shows up at ringside. I have no idea where he came from because he was on the opposite side of the ring from the entrance ramp. And Undisputed Era were on that side. I mean, I've managed to skip over a little spot here. Yeah, basically, after the high-low combination and 2 count, Ciampa threw Cole out and took out O'Reilly and Fish on the outside. Then Strong jumped up on the ring apron and ate the Willow's Bell, the draping DDT. And then Ciampa just corkscrewed over the top rope onto the 3 members of Undisputed Era that weren't Roderick Strong. And I was like, wow, I didn't know he could do that. And like, again, stick to what you're good at. But he did it once in this match. He did one big thing in the match that probably took everyone by surprise with that high flying thing that he doesn't normally do. That's how you do it. And he did it well. Looked like he'd practiced it before. It came off. It was successful. That's how you do it, guys. Just saying. Unlike the Keith Lee Dijakovic match where they were doing far too much of it, or the Rhea Ripley Bianca Belair match where it looked like they'd never tried it before, this is how you do it. Once. And successfully, because you've practiced. That's how you do it. Anyway, then we had the ref bump that I've already covered and blah, 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 blah. Then, like I say, Gargano showed up. No idea where he came from. But as Ciampa reaches out for the NXT title, Gargano grabs it and then awkwardly jumps up and reaches through the ropes to hit Ciampa with it from outside the ring. So it didn't look that impactful, but that was what got Adam Cole the 3. And I was like, get in the ring and really clean his clock, or just hit him like that and he turns on and stumbles into a Panama Sunrise, or I don't know, but it looked really low impact for the finish, and that was probably just they didn't anticipate how much of a stretch it'd be to actually hit him with it. I don't know, but because Gargano's not the biggest guy, like not the tallest guy, so he had to like basically jump to hit him, get a little step ladder and climb up and hit him. But yeah, it was a really underwhelming 3 count considering the stuff that people had kicked out of, including Ciampa. Had kicked out of more than that during the match. So I don't know. Not a fan of. I am a fan of the finish. I'm a big fan of them finally doing the finale to Ciampa Gargano, but with the twist that Gargano is going to be the heel. But and by the way, I can see the program coming. Gargano's going to be like, "How dare you cheer this guy? Do you remember what he did to me? You're supposed to love me, and he did all that to me, and then because he got injured, now he's everyone's favourite." Like I can see that coming a mile off. Like the fans turned on me before I turned on the fans, kind of situation. I get that. It's going to be a good story. I'm not complaining about that. I just the actual finish itself, the actual way it carried out, the execution of it. The idea was good. The execution was not, in my opinion. And instantly, I did note. That's twice now Gargano saved the NXT title for Adam Cole, because he also saved it. He came back against Finn Balor. That was when Gargano returned from his injury and distracted Finn Balor, and then Balor got last shotted, I believe, or whatever move it was that got him. But yeah, so considering their massive rivalry, the rivalry of the year last year, Gargano and half been helping Cole, like, and I know that's not necessarily like an intentional story beat where Gargano's going to join Undisputed Era and all that, but I mean he might do, but he probably doesn't. But the point is, it was like Like, why is Gargano suddenly like quite happy to help Adam Cole? Like, even if he's got an issue with Cole's opponents, like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, so I finished on 4 out of 6 on predictions. I was only really upset about getting the Ciampa one wrong, but I was also expecting to. I was surprised to get the Riddle and Dunn match wrong. I was disappointed to get the Ciampa match wrong. And that was how it finished. And my paper's rustling because the paper won't stay folded over, so I'm just going to close the book nice and quietly because I'm reading that out. So let me know in the comments what you thought of the show, what I've said that you agreed with and disagreed with, what you think of how Tampa's shaping up and how future stories are shaping up. Who's going to go after the NXT title, by the way, do you think, at Tampa? Will it be Velveteen Dream? He's already involved with Roderick Strong. He can sort of naturally progress up to Cole. That'd be a good match. He's the first name to pop into my head because, as far as I'm aware, Balor's going to be staying heel. And I don't think they'll do heel as a main event of a takeover. They do that on TV, but I don't think they'll do it as a main event of a takeover. Gargano's clearly just turned and is also busy. Ciampa's now busy and just had a match anyway. And they don't tend to do that many repeat matches. Like last year, Cole and Gargano was a bit of an anomaly by the way they took each other on. Keith Lee is the North American champion, so unless they fast track getting the belt off him and stick him in, it's probably Velveteen Dream, right? Let me know in the comments who you think. Also, leave a like, be greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, if you're still here, drop a like, let me know. Also, drop a comment, mention it in your comment, got to the end. Let me know all that good stuff. It's appreciated. Subscribe if you're new here. Share with your friends if you think they would enjoy my review of NXT TakeOver. Maybe they would strongly disagree with something I've said. Send them over it. Get them to debate it in the comments. As long as people aren't like being idiots, like just being troglodytes in the comment section. I don't mind people disagreeing. I don't mind people debating stuff. I will debate back. I'm not just going to be like, no, you're wrong. You're an idiot. Well, I'll actually, try and defend my point of view and what have you. But yeah, if you do it from that angle as well, I'm quite happy to debate things in the comments. As part of the fun of the wrestling fandom is all the different perspectives, and everyone wants something different out of it, and and everyone expects something different out of it, and that can be fun sometimes. Also, check out the description for my other channels, my social media, my Patreon. If you want to support me for just $1 per calendar month for 1/10 of a WWE network, then I would absolutely appreciate it. But for now, all I have left to say is thank you very much for watching. As always, I've been Ibeza, you've been amazing, and I will see you next time.